Welcome to Hashknife Hangouts. I'm Calen Carpenter, and with me is my ever loyal host and father, Brandon Carpenter.
Hey everybody, ever
uh,
loyal?
yeah,
Uh,
I mean, I kind of have to have you as loyal because you don't really have a choice. So, anyway, this week we're going to be talking about two big things. Actually, it's going to be the week's events, really. You going over to Missoula, and then
oh
the
yeah,
boot on the neck calf sales this morning, or actually not this morning, this last Friday, and yeah, we'll get there. We'll start with the lighthearted stuff first. How was Dunrovin over at Missoula with
oh,
Suzanne?
Dunrovin's good. It just happened to work out that I knew I was going over there. We'd had a couple of meetings set up for me to go, teaching a clinic, and then that fell through, and then some lessons, and those fell through. It was timing. It was just, really tough. And finally, we got it put together where I would go over for 2 half days. And, we're going to work with Suzanne, do some teletraining like we've done in the past, where I've helped one of her wranglers teach the wrangler how to train while we're training a new horse. And it's been a real interesting thing to do. It's been kind of fun. It's interesting about communication, learning, trying to teach, all of those dynamics that go around that when you're not right there and they can't see me and my facial expressions and how you talk and use your hands and use your body. Those cues are gone because I'm in their ear.
Right.
So I went over and met her new wrangler. We worked a little bit. On the way, though, I've been working Pomp this year and met the fellows that bought him in Missoula. They come from Hood River, Oregon. I told them, hey, I'm going to be going in the Missoula area. That's 400 miles away from the ranch. If you're interested, we could meet. You could purchase him and be gone. And they did. They were just excited to get him. So I met them. We agreed to meet about 10:30 because I had to meet at Dunrovin at noon. I left the house that morning at right around 3:30 for a 6-hour drive, but it took me a little over 4 hours to get halfway. The roads were horrendous. We had that early storm, and I was on black ice with a horse in the back on that long trailer and slush on the ice. I had to stop a couple times and break ice off of the vehicle just to keep going. It was ugly. Got basically just almost to Butte, and it started clearing up between Butte and Bozeman. So I got about 100 and probably 60 miles, 170 miles, and it cleared up, just wet roads. And now I'm able to do 80, 85.
Catch up some
Horse
time.
was all four stretched out like this. I'm sure, no, he was good, but decent interstate. So I was able to get there by 10:30, but my God, what a mess. It was bad. Sheets of ice were flying off of the vehicle and dropping ice on the interstate as we're going. But got him taken care of. They got him home. Everything worked out well there. Worked with Suzanne's group and some of our tech guy, James. So we're kind of putting together the thing for some more teletraining, and then doing the Montana Socials.org that we're going to be doing every Monday with her at 10:30. I think I do teletraining. And just before that, they're going to do a Montana Socials that I put together, give them the clips, they put it together, play it. Then we do the teletraining, and then up for a few minutes afterwards, then I answer questions about that, what's going on throughout the week, based off of whatever videos we send to them or whatever topic it was. And this week is gathering cattle, sorting, and the sale, kind of what we're going to talk about now. But then after that, I come home. Again, weather changed. We brought cows home 10 days early. And so, because they're over on a lease that we lease from a neighbor, they live over in the Dakotas and have this property over here. We got hopefully a good relationship with them. I really like them. Easy to deal with. I do my part, and they're like, okay, good. But this year, grasshoppers hit that all the country here, everywhere. And then we get this snow on top of that. So it's time to bring those girls home a little bit early. It was easier to sort them, do everything here at the home place, and get them ready to, go to market. So we've done that, and now I'm feeding out here in about 1.5 feet of snow. It's it's not quite that much now. We had about 16 inches melted down to about 3-4 inches, and now we got, after yesterday and the night before, a lot more snow and wind. So it's been interesting and fun.
I saw and like you said earlier, you said, what is it, montanasocials.org?
Yep.
And those are on Mondays, and it's all day too, right? They do like live stream all day, I think.
Yeah, it's a very neat concept that Suzanne Miller of Dunrovin Ranch has come up with. At heart, she's a teacher, and her and I did a quick thing on our Facebook site earlier, just before I left there on Tuesday, sorry. And she loves, the eclectic groups of people that come and go and share what they do. I mean, she's such a learner. She wants to learn about everything, well after her retirement time, but she really hasn't retired because she's had this guest ranch, which has been really kind of a neat focus, because I can come in and teach clinics to very novice people or people who haven't been around horses. So it's kind of an introductory thing, or people that have had advanced, horse work, and done all of that, worked with school kids there, worked with abused kids, people, just a very wide variety of things that are, I'm sure, going to be on the Montana Socials .org group. So, and it will, yeah, you're right, it'll be throughout the day, different time periods, and it'll be kind of neat. She's looking for talked to her yesterday, she's looking for a fisherman who can do stuff, and who I thought of right away.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of him right now too. That's what I thought of. Especially from Missoula, because as a fly fisherman, he would be phenomenal. Because I mean, Missoula, everybody says, "Oh, go to Missoula for fly fishing," and that's his alley. I mean, he would be like, "Oh yeah, that's easy, I got it."
Well, and if he could do one a week like that, it'd be kind of some of the same things and fun. But I mean, you got gardeners. I mean, there's all kinds of different subjects that you can cover that people are interested in, and you can learn from each other. I think it's kind of a neat idea. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it does really well.
And they've got their page. I just followed them on the Hashknife Ranch YouTube page. They subscribe to us, so I subscribe to them, and it's Days at Dunrovin. And Dunrovin, for those who are listening, is spelled Dunrovin, Dunrovin. And they're like you said, they're doing more of like a cyber ranch, is how Suzanne's always explained it, because she's got a small ranch over in Lolo, and they've got horses, and they've got the divas. The divas are 2 donkeys that hang out. They're really the mascots. They're hilarious.
They really are.
And and that kind of leads into what I was gonna say too, is like I was watching you, because I saw on Facebook, because I follow Days at Dunrovin on Facebook on my personal account. They said, "Hey, come check out Brandon. He's gonna be helping do what you were doing on Monday." I think it was Monday. And so I got on the live site as soon as I came home from work, so I got to watch for 2 or 3 hours, and I saw the divas go into the tack room, and I was like,
yeah.
And I typed on there on the chat, I was like, do the divas go in the tack room quite frequently? And I used my normal tagline, CB Carpenter. And Suzanne jumped on there. She's like, CB, it's nice to see you. Yes, they're
awesome.
always in the tack room. That's what they do.
And yeah, the door was closed, and the 2 divas are little donkeys named Maud and Gertrude. And one of them just walked right up to them and just headbutts the door.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They're
a
so
50-pound head. All they got to do is just whack anything.
Yeah. No, it was good. So, yeah, I did half a day Monday, and then we worked Tuesday morning, and then I left about noon or so Tuesday, got home right about dark, a couple long days. And then early the next morning, we were up, and your mom and I, she took 2 days of school off she had to take because, the government owns both my kids, so they're no good to me anymore. And so, no,
is Braden owned by the federal government, or is it the state government?
Well, it's BLM, it's federal.
Oh, okay, never mind.
So, but
it's only state, but no, I guess it is federal.
No, it's federal. But being a firefighter, I mean, wildlands, he's like you. You've got a job to do. And I remember doing the same thing. I remember, God, I'd left home and called back for something. I don't know what it was. And my mom, your grandma, was like, well, tried to do this and I couldn't get the gate closed. And so I had to do this. And I'm like,
That's
feeling all this guilty, you know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh God, you know, so I don't mean to do that. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm just making a joke of it because I'm plenty able to open and close gates as your mother laments.
Well, I was gonna say we've also that was a key, that was like a cornerstone in all fence building just before I left, was make sure that the gate could be closed and opened by mom. And that was the
Yeah,
test. If it couldn't be opened, we had to figure out a way to loosen it a little bit. Make it so.
there's a couple of gates I need to loosen because
Yeah.
I do hear about it, and she's right. I mean, my grandpa built a gate that if you were under 150 pounds, you are not getting that thing open. There's no way.
Yeah, there was a couple of those that I was growing up. I'm like, I can't get it. I tried everything I had, I couldn't get it.
Well, and I learned in a hurry that if I was riding, and I was a little guy when I was young, I grew like 8 inches that one summer between my 8th grade and freshman year. I went back to school and people didn't know me because I had grown so much.
Yeah.
And I couldn't open gates. You know, I'm just gangly. And so I learned that if I took my rope down and I put it around the fence post and then kind of used it as a fulcrum around the gate and then back on the post, and then I could pull it tight. I could pull that gate and I could squeeze them together with my horse and the rope. And then I just lift the bail, have a horse come forward. I could get through any gate in the country that way, but
There you go.
it took some doing today.
Ingenuity.
And a decent horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't one I was training, I can tell you that. It was one that was already done.
Yeah. But going back to Dunrovin real quick, I noticed you were talking about body language and stuff like that. It was interesting to see how they were. It's hard to describe, but when you're in a round corral, putting your shoulders in front of that animal and immediately stop them, and they're like, "Well, why'd they do that?" Like, well, you stopped him. They're like,
right.
What do you mean? And then also the assertiveness. I watched a couple of them trying to get the horses going, and they just couldn't, and they were just super lazy, and they knew they could get away with it. And then you got in there and you made them, hey, listen, no, you're gonna do what I tell you to. And suddenly it was like, oh, and then you kind of helped get it figured out, and then you switch with her real quick. And then once the horse figured out it was her doing it again, he's like, oh, I can get away with this. And he started relaxing again. You're like, all right, this is now you have to stand in there, make that horse do what you want. It's funny to watch because you were also talking about not just the body language, but attitude as well. You know, if you're coming in there and you just got a bad attitude, it's probably not going to be great for building that relationship with the horse and stuff. So it was cool to share on that live stream.
Yeah, and you talk about the energy use in your body, how you can influence. And we do it to people too. We just don't realize it, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, you had one gal was very, very novice, really nice gal, super smart. I mean, and it's not about smarts or being dumb. I mean, it's not at all. It's about being aware and watching and responding. And, you know, well, you watch that and you've been around your whole life, but that's really the cues that you're doing. And if you can do that with these animals, the effectiveness of the communication with somebody else, like a spouse or business partner or workmate, whatever, can be much, much enhanced and you can be a better team. But it's kind of interesting from my perspective is that I'm looking on a TV screen or a computer monitor while I'm doing this, and I can't necessarily see what they've done either, because it's such a broad picture. And that's where the challenge comes in. And I have to ask sometimes, did you do this? Or, okay, I saw you do that. Did you mean to do that? You know, so those sorts of things, when you're not there in live, you know, in person, you can see when they've turned their shoulders this much to this much will make a difference. And you can't necessarily see that from a camera a ways away.
Well, and the thing too that I noticed this when you first started helping with the teletraining was the biggest limiting factor with doing it remotely is that the things that need to be done immediately, like that horse just threw its head and was essentially being disrespectful to you, you have to immediately, like, you have to take care of that issue. You have to address it and you have to resolve it immediately. And
within a half a second max.
Yeah, and the time that it takes to get to you is actually more of like a second and a half to travel all the way across the state of Montana. And it's like too late. By the time you've seen it, you recognize it and you know what to do, but it's already 2 seconds past the actual time that it occurred.
Yeah, just in reaction times. Yeah, no, that's right. It's like you see it, I go, oh, I would have reacted instead of the time that it takes me to say it. I would have already reacted and been done.
Yeah.
But you say it, communicate it, they pick that communication up, and then hopefully execute it correctly. And you're right here. So it's very difficult. It's very challenging to do that, but we've done pretty well with it on the one horse, and we're starting on another one. So it's going to be fun to see how this turns out. So yeah,
that's something too, though. I just thought of like similar to sign language. I think that's something where you almost need to really get an in-depth understanding of the body language and just get used to it and know what it means before you start doing the teletraining, because that may help like the person that's actually physically doing it, because then they would be able to recognize it more frequently than you would, and you wouldn't have that. If the lag does occur, they'd be able to react without you having to tell them. And it's almost like, I'm familiar with sign language, so I can do it, rather than, okay, let me look this up real quick and then go back to it.
Well, and that's part of why I was over there yesterday, or I mean Monday and Tuesday, was to do some of those basics like that. And it's frustrating in the sense that you can never have all things possible happen so that you can point them out. And if you did, it's like drinking from a fire hose, on their part, right? And everything changes. Every horse is different, and every horse is different from day to day. So, you have to just read them, see what's there. And sometimes, sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes you miss it. Even as long as I've been doing it, you're like, oh, I should have caught that. Right. Or, I should have done this, should have done that, could have made that a little bit better. I mean, of course, that's the whole process of improving and recognizing what's what and what needs to happen. So anyway, we did that and then got back and brought cows home, which was pretty easy. I mean, that worked out pretty well. I think you posted that on our Facebook.
Yeah, I use the editing software that I have, and I was able to put all 3 videos together. We're still learning the best way to put the videos or produce the videos in the first place, because talking to Mom, holding the phone up like this versus pan,
right,
I'm gonna create the widescreen, and that's why there's the black bars on the side. But we will get there eventually.
Well, I think the one of me talking to open up and explain what we were doing, I was holding that camera up the correct way too, and it just still come through. So I don't understand. But anyway, that and the one where I'm trailing the cows once we had them on the road. So anyway, those are technical things we don't need to talk about now. But we got them home, got them lined out here, and we were just giddy and happy that everybody was there. And so the next,
but everybody
morning,
wasn't there.
What's that?
We should talk on that. But I know we did a quick in the shoot episode that'll release probably not this week, but next week. But everybody wasn't there. We were missing a steer, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can't count the calves. They're hard to count. So you're counting all the grown animals.
Yeah.
And early on, we had put in. We've got so many calves or so many pairs that we can run on the lease as the agreement. And so when I went over there with the bulls, we had a lot less than what we could take. And so, I talked to our leaser and explained, how many head I'd have, how many days, and then I'd like to put a few more than the allotted, 50 in there, 50 pairs, then for the remainder, and it would still work out with this many AUMs. I extrapolate. It's like, okay, how many AUMs is it, or animal unit managed, per acre is basically what it is, or animal units per month. And so I backed that up and went, okay, we can put in this many. And so I contact her and say, hey, would you be opposed to this? It's still the same AUMs. She goes, oh yeah, no problem, great. So we had a few more there. I know the number, but some of them were heifers, so they weren't even pairs. So I was even more conservative on the grass than that. And she doesn't necessarily know that. So it doesn't matter as long as I'm not violating the lease,
Yeah.
I mean, you want to have a good relationship with somebody. But anyway, counted the number of adults there, and I'm like, okay, everybody's here. Great. Come down the road, turned them in here, and I think we fed them a single bale, just about a half a ration, because they still had a decent amount of grass that they could look at chewing on. So just let it at that. I wanted them just a tad bit on the hungry side and tuned up to that pickup, which that's not a problem. Your mother's like Snow White. I always say that every animal in the world loves her. So
Yeah.
She just went out with a 4-wheeler and a sack of cake, and I was going to ride the horse. We didn't even do that. I mean, they were right there. So I was like, well, there's no sense in taking the time to saddle a horse to go there. They're all coming right in, and did. But we got in, sorted everybody, and I knew what numbers we had of heifers to steers to replacement heifers and a butcher steer. Like, oh, wait a minute, these numbers aren't we're short one. And especially in the steers that we're going to market and the butcher steer. I'm trying to find this butcher steer so we can pull him out of there and hang on to him. He's not anywhere around. I'm like, what? And I mean, I probably spent a half an hour looking for this stupid steer, checking every single ear tag, and so was your mom. He's not there. Total head, we're short one. And so I narrowed it down to that's who it was. And so after the sale on Friday, went to that and took another shot to the groin this year, which we can talk about. But anyway, I come back up here, saddle a horse, and I went looking for that steer, and I can't find him anywhere. So then it was rain. It was snowing hard, and the wind was blowing, and it was, covering everything. So if we got a dead steer out there somewhere, he's covered in snow, and I can't do anything. You're never going to find him unless you step on him. So I'm going to wait till it warms up, and it's supposed to later this coming week, and then see if I can't find him. And if I can't, then I'll have to maybe employ your brother after we move him back home, because his fire season is done. So we'll move him back from Lewistown, where he's been living all since the spring, and might jump in the airplane and see if we can see something that way. And he may be eaten up enough that there was one carcass that was out there, but looked a little bit old, looked a little small, but bones are a lot different than on a fleshy animal. And it was, through snow, and I thought, it looks a little bit more like an antelope deer size to me. I'm sure it's not, but you worry about that because you also have a block management area where the owners get paid to let people hunt, which, I love to hunt too, but it doesn't mean that somebody isn't unscrupulous, because I found several carcasses that were dumped. I found an antelope that was shot before season. So, maybe somebody's got some good taste in beef, and they decided, that's enough meat there, because it was a really nice butcher animal. That's why I was going to save him. Hey, we can quarter this thing and get it out of here, and nobody's going to know. So I hope it's not that, but that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
More to come on that. We'll find out.
And then, of course, I'm sitting there at work on Friday. I'm getting messages from you. I'm like, oh, cool. He's at the sale. And I'm watching it real quick. And I was like, uh-oh. And I'm watching the bid. And I'm like, come on, come up. And it didn't come up. And then you confirmed my worst suspicions, which was, ooh, we might have broke even. And those are not good words to hear. Yeah, and those was on the steers. But when I hear we might have broke even, you're like, uh-oh. And unfortunately, I was talking to Mom about this too, is I've been very cognizant of what is going on with the market recently with Twitter and whatnot, and watching just kind of overall trends, and they've been going up. And I think part of that was, COVID, the overall situation, just things were doing well, and people were coming home with pretty good amounts of money in their pocket. And then apparently they didn't like it when we came to town, because those prices dropped hard. And that was nice.
Yeah, well, and there's a difference between watching the futures market, which my dad used to rail about the futures market, because all you're doing then is you're basing the market, the real market, on what's happening with the futures and how they're trading, at the Chicago Mercantile or New York Stock Exchange. And these guys they're sitting behind a computer, and all this is a number to them, and all they're trying to do is make money off of it.
Well, they're gambling on what potentially could happen. and it has
Right.
absolutely no effect on what's actually happening, which is,
No.
it's very frustrating because why are you gambling on potential like that? And
Well, and to me, it's market manipulation when you do that,
yeah,
and
it
that's what
can be.
really pisses me off. That and I went on a, I think I left the sale. I was so
You
I
called it
was
a
in
rant.
shock.
I watched the video. You called it a rant, but it was actually very well thought out and it was calm. I know you were not happy, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like you were out there yelling and screaming and or just being
No.
straight up angry like a lot of actual viral rants go. But you made good points, and one of those being the meat packers, and that's what it is. What's happening is, and you said it right. Okay, let's set the context here. Our product sold towards the top end, and
Right.
it did really well. But that's the top end of a low market. So it just happened to be that they just weren't buying really high per pound on that day, and that's an unfortunate circumstance for us. So now we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board a little bit and relook at some stuff and make some decisions. But the
But here's the thing. You got the guys that are buying there. They're
that's where I'm
buying. They're
going.
trying to make a living too, and
Yep.
they're buying for a feedlot who is
Yes.
buying for a packer,
Right.
right? And those guys are sitting there every single day
Yep. That's their
when they're
job. They
buying.
sit there in the ring or on a screen watching these
Same
calves go
guys,
through. Yeah. And
right?
they're going, all right, I'll take this, I'm only getting paid this amount today. So this is all I can bid on.
Right.
Okay, I got $1,000. Okay, I can bid. If I can get 2 calves, that'd be great for $1,000. But I mean, you're really lowballing it there. But I'm just making a point.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to stretch stuff out and get everything you can out of it. And that's what happens is maybe they get shortchanged on a day and they're like, this is all I got, but I know these numbers are coming through, so I got to bid low. And essentially everybody gets in the same boat because you've only got like four packing companies. And
For the four main ones, yeah.
and that in itself is a sort of monopoly. I know it's not, but it is
Well,
because they talk amongst each other and they're like, hey, I'm not going to be buying a whole lot, and
here's the
we need to
problem.
stay on the
Some
same
of those
page.
major uh, owners controlling interests in those, in some of the big ones, are not American companies. They are
Yeah.
Brazilian, Chinese, So, and we're making less and less money on our product. The fact is, I sat down and I did a very, very conservative cost of what it costs to put one animal together. What we got in them for feed, what you got in them for vaccines, wormer, mineral, you name, everything you need to care for that animal to get them to market, and you count a certain dollar amount, right? And that changes from year to year based on your feed costs, fuel. And I counted just the fuel we run through the feed pickup and the tractor. I didn't count the fuel that when we
For
were driving
traveling.
back and forth, and
Yeah.
we have a significant fuel cost. We eat that personally.
Right.
When you figure that up, and then I figure what we got, we needed a base to cover, just to break even. That's here. When we got done with the sale, on the average, we were 70% back of what we needed. So we're at 30% in the hole for this year. So what the hell are we going to do? Right now, I got to look at which cows I got to take to town because we can't afford to feed them.
Yeah.
And again, the couple hours I sat there, I saw what was going on. There was only a couple of them that took more money. And we have, there's always the red Angus versus black Angus, and the black Angus people have done a phenomenal marketing job on their cattle. I mean, incredible. I don't know how you could do anything better, really. It's about product recognition and whether it's a household name or not, so they've done a great job. Our cattle are the same, but there's still meat. It's on the hoof, and it's going to a feedlot. You're getting quality beef. We're doing things that are no hormones, all natural. They're vaccinated, yes, but they're not getting any kind of antibiotics unless they're sick, and then they're segregated anyway. You don't sell them as that kind of an animal. So we're trying to make quality animals, and are making quality animals. And when you look at what ours were, and I should have taken some pictures of some of the others that come in there as an average. Man, ours come in, and you could see, if you listen to the auctioneers, well, you'll have to maybe place, or if you can piece some of that together, or just go to our Facebook site, because that'll be posted later today.
Yeah, you know what? You
tomorrow.
Sent that to me on WhatsApp, so I think I can probably download that, and I might be able to splice that in here. Cut this, open it up, and throw it in the middle, and we can probably do it right here or something like that.
Yeah, and just and just look at what the auctioneers, when they see these steers come in, and I can recognize them right off. I go, oh, there's our steers.
Yeah.
You know, and then here comes our heifers on another frame, and you look what they say about them, and
okay, here come our steers.
Yep, these are the Hashknife Ranch cattle up there on the right here. They're pre-con 2 pluses right here. On May 24th, they had one round of shots. On September 24th, they had the Bow Shield Gold 1-shot Division 7 Sonus. They've also had the ivermectin pour-on that day. They're Becton, Leachman, and Bieber sired. They're banded at birth. They've been on a Cargill Bronze Emerald Flight Control and Cobalt Sulfur Minnow. And here's a nice set of these steers right here. The good Hashknife cattle from up there at our right gate. Spring child, both, yep, had 2 rounds of them right here. Not weaned, no, but they're pre-con 2 pluses right here. Now, good set of kids right here. $134, now 5, now 39, 5 cents, 37, now half 7, now 38, now 8, now they're good cattle, now $38, gotta go now 39, sold 138 and a half, 3 by number 5, 3 to 5.
Okay, that makes you sick. We might have broke even.
I mean, you have to think about what it's doing for you, and you know we're behind now where we didn't even cover the costs to raise them. You can't continue to do that very long. So,
well, and I think that goes to the point of people are wondering why 90%. I think that was the statistic, and everybody knows how much I hate statistics, but I'm gonna throw it out there. I think it was, I saw it like 2 weeks ago. 90% of all farm and ranch businesses are family owned, as in, you know, they're the mom and pop, less than 600 acres. You know, it's not a lot, but it makes up the conglomeration across the entire U.S. makes up 90% of what we have for agriculture. The other 10% is, you know, it's going to be those bigger ranches and farms, and maybe even those corporate industries that they have their own farms and ranches.
I think the average size for family owned, which is like 1.5% of our population, is a family owned farm or ranch. That's all agriculture, not just, that's grain. You know, your peas, beans, corn, all of that sort of stuff, and wheat. And you lump cattle in that. 1.5% of our population are family owned like that. Now, when you're talking cattle, I think the average is like 40 head.
It's 40 head.
Average size herd across our nation. Well, you know, we're bigger than that. I think we feed nearly globally 100 families globally. And so it's like, you know, with what we do.
But the problem is, if things, and this is where people are like, oh, it's just another group of farmers and ranchers bitching and griping for no reason. And it's not a no reason, because the ramifications are, if we're hitting only 70%, you can't sustain that as a business for much longer. And much longer could be a matter of months, could be a matter of just a couple of years, whatever that is. If it continues to be like that, you're out of business, because that's what's going to happen. You just can't keep up. So what results in that is there's less food that will be produced, because we're going to have to end up no longer producing cows, or very few cows. And it's going to cause less and less food production. That's for us. And then you go the next family, the so on and so forth, and it keeps doing that. Eventually, you're not going to have food. And then there's going to be, oh, why is there a famine? Why is there, why are there food shortages, legit food shortages? And it's because you're not producing it anymore because you essentially financially ran the subject matter experts and professionals out of their own field.
Well, see, and I think you're headed the right direction there in a way. I disagree with how we get there, because I think what will happen is, I think you're forgetting about the corporate farming, and this is where we're at with the packers. The packers have huge interests that are out of our country, that are enemies. They are not our friends.
And that goes to, I don't understand why we allow other countries to own businesses in our country. They don't allow
well, I
us
think
to.
that's part of what I was getting at. I didn't specifically say it then, but I agree. I totally agree. And I was alluding to politicians.
Yeah.
And I was so mad at the time that I think I said something about they'll look you in the eye and tell you they're going to take care of you while they're stabbing you in the back. And I should have said, while they're shaking your hand and stabbing you in the back with the other one, but keeping an eye on the competition. Joe Goggins is the owner of Pays, Public Auction Yards and Billings.
And I think he's the owner. Is he technically the owner of Vermilion Ranch too? Or is that
I don't know how their structure is, but it's family owned, right?
Yeah, the Goggins family is a big family in Montana, and they've actually got some stuff in the Midwest too, I think.
Yeah, very, very successful. Know what the hell is going on. They really know. And I saw Joe on a small piece that was done on ag, and he said, look, you cannot continue to have our ranchers losing money on our animals when the packers are now in a very short period of time, like a couple of years, making 400% and 500% increases in profit.
Yeah.
So here's my point. They will squeeze us out who are raising because we can't afford to. Why do you keep doing this? To lose money. You can't sustain that. You're right. I got you there.
You'll starve to death.
Right. So we do have a luxury where we have tried to be very smart about what we do, and our property is paid off. All we got to do, but we got to struggle to pay the taxes on it. Yeah. Whole other issue with property taxes and people moving in, and I think we covered that on one of the episodes of In the Chute about Californians coming in. Californians, but there's other states. That's our biggest nemesis.
We should just term that out of staters, really. But
it is.
But yes, a lot of them do come from California.
Right. But what happens is they increase property taxes to the point where people can't hang on to their homes even though they're paid, they can't pay the taxes. Same way here. So eventually people will sell, and guess who's going to buy? Corporate.
Yeah.
Corporate will then be able to, as a mass, go ahead and produce. And if the corporation is owned by, guess what? The same ones that own these packing corporations, out of state or out of country interests, now you've monopolized a food supply.
Mm-hmm.
They'll make food because we're making food now. We're feeding the world. We're not just feeding our own country. We are literally feeding the world. I think I said 100 people we feed globally. I think it's more. I'm sorry. I think it's more like 140 people globally
that
on what
sense.
We produce, because we're 2.5 times larger than the average size, which we're not big. That's still pretty small. They will be able to control and still make the amount of feed that is needed to feed everybody, but now they'll control all of it. And so how much do you want to pay for hamburger?
Right. And that's where also going to it, people are hearing, well, stop your bitching. I'm paying $2 more a pound for my beef, my ground beef, to take it home and make burger. You're getting the money. No. That's where the 400% and 500% increase comes from. That's going to the packer. They're lowering the cost on essentially their wholesale providers, which is us, and going through the middleman of the stockyards, the feedlots, then to the packers. And they're just slowly squeezing each level lower and lower until we're begging for crumbs. But then what they're doing is they're jacking up the price on their end so they can get more incoming. So they're doing what the typical, and this is where I love capitalism, but this is where it can kind of bite you in the butt, is they're lowering the cost on the increase, but they're increasing on the output because that's how you get more money. whatever your supplies are, you get as low as you possibly can, and you get as much profit as possible that's acceptable, and that is what makes your business successful. But they're doing it to the point where it's detriment to, like you're saying, communities, people, lives, businesses. That's where it's just.
Well, you're not talking a true capitalism there, because with capitalism you're looking at a fair market.
It's also true.
They're creating a market that is not fair in order to monopolize it, so later on you don't have a capitalist type fair market system. You've got basically a monopoly, and they've got monopolies right now on the packing industry. You see a lot of small producers like ourselves that are starting to finish their own beef, and we got small butcher shops springing up everywhere. That is fantastic. I'd love to see that.
So there's also a legislative act in Montana, the state of Montana specifically. I don't remember what it's called. I wish I had it handy. I tweeted about it probably a month or two ago. But that act is specifically made for boosting the butcher industry in Montana, so we can do local produced stuff just like that for this reason, because they're realizing that if they don't get a hold of it, Montana is already a resource state where we don't have a lot of income, but we provide a lot of resources, and they're seeing, at least for now, the state legislature, if we don't get a handle on the cattle market within our state, we're going to lose it, and it's going to end up resulting in the loss of our state financially.
Well, and here's what really just pissed me off last April, the end of April, when all the COVID stuff was really hitting hard.
Yeah.
And we don't, okay, they're shutting down packing areas because people are afraid to go on the line. We really didn't know that much about COVID. And there was a huge fear about survivability. I mean, there was so much hype about it. We took an import from Namibia in Africa. There was like 2,500 tons of beef, and that number's maybe wrong. You'd have to look that up for yourself. But we imported beef from Namibia the end of April into the U.S. Like, what in the hell are we doing that for? Well, there's trade and tariffs, and I don't give a crap what you're doing. We have the safest, healthiest food supply in the world, and now you're going to bring stuff in from Africa, Brazil, Mexico. This is garbage meat. Canada, they're dumping their cattle on us.
Canada's probably okay for safety reasons, but I don't necessarily trust the other three.
Canada's the one that brought us a dairy animal that had mad cow disease and shut everything down a number of years ago. I mean, thank you, Canada.
Well, yeah, I get that, but to be fair, that's also however many years ago that was. I'm talking about the here and now. I would hope that their health standards are higher, but the other three, Mexico, Brazil, and Namibia, those would be the ones that I'd be concerned about the most, because I know it's lower income nations, and they're not going to have necessarily the money and resources to ensure that their production facilities are up to health code standards, if there are health code standards there.
Right.
It's just
very little. Well, and then all they have to do is, everybody wants to buy American made, right? So there's all kinds of loopholes that they can kill it, butcher it in their country, put it in a box, send it across the line, and then if it's cut up into smaller pieces, now it's American made.
Yeah, and I 100% disagree with that.
Exactly.
Here's where we need to establish the rules, I guess, the regulations that would say it's American produced. Is, did it grow up and was it butchered in the United States? Those right there should suffice. I don't think there's much for loopholes with that. There probably is, but it was raised in the U.S., butchered in the U.S. That should catch all of it. And if it doesn't meet those two requirements, then it's not.
Yeah, I think you'd have to put some restrictions or some definition on raised. What does that mean? Brought in, turned loose, and fed overnight.
Right, but
right. I mean,
you know where I'm going though. Like
I do.
I would say if it's raised, it was birthed, either calved or I don't know. What's the proper term for swine and sheep?
Well, farrow and lamb.
I know, but
Hogs,
like,
you farrow hogs and you lamb sheep.
okay, so there you go.
Calve cattle, right?
So yeah, so if they've been, you said farrow, lambed,
Farrow.
farrow.
Farrow. Farrow.
Okay, so if they've been
Shows you how
farrowed,
much you haven't played with hogs much
no,
growing up, right? Exactly.
farrowed, lambed, or calves,
Right.
and here's another thing. I don't mind eating horse. I would try it. I'm okay with it. Sorry, it's gonna be controversial, but open the slaughterhouses again for horses. Whole nother issue. We'll go down that later.
Yeah.
But if it was any of those three, or fold, we'll throw horses there. Fold in the United States, in a United States state, not territory, state, and killed and butchered in a state, then I think you can probably settle for the most part. That would suffice for it works for United States product. But if it's just imported, yeah. But if it's just imported from China or something, and then you just it was killed, I don't know what their loopholes are, but it's just so aggravating.
Actually,
It's such a lie. It is what it is. It's a fallacy. You're trying to make people think that it's an American product when it's not.
Right.
What they're doing is they're throwing money at this product, thinking I'm supporting my country, and it's not. It's going to an outside country.
Well, and there's a couple of things that go along with that. Going the way it's going, you have to, and let's back up a little bit. I said, and you mentioned that squeezing small farms and ranches out.
Yeah.
How do you become large? A large corporation? Well, if you grab a nibble on little guys around you, you can accumulate a lot of ground, a lot of pasture land, a lot of operating area. If you want a feedlot, whatever it is, grow commodities to feed those animals, you can do that. That's how you become large. And this is like one of those car dealerships. It's kind of an analogy there where, man, these guys are selling these vehicles $100 over factory cost. How do they do that? Well, they're selling 10,000 cars a year, right? So it's the same way in this. You can't necessarily make money with a very small outfit. If you make some, you're not much of a profit. You better have an outside job like everybody's had on this place, because we're not able to sustain everybody on the place. Everybody takes their turn when they're old enough to dump a job out in the corporate world or whatever they're doing. And then when like I get old and I get to where I can't do it and I'm ready to die, then it goes to you and your brother. That's how you can maintain a small family ranch or farm at this point. You have to be large to be able to make enough volume, just like these car dealers selling at $100 over dealer cost. You have to sell a ton. Well, in order to sell a ton, you have to have a lot. That's where your corporate people come in, or corporate type farming, where it's on volume. It's on the amount that you can possibly control and make. That's what gets you through, and that's what provides you a profit, a larger profit. So I have seen since the time I was not even in junior high school. I remember, I think it was Jimmy Carter was in office, Gerald Ford to Jimmy Carter, that era. And the farmers across the nation they were at the breaking point, and their cost per bushel, or what they're getting per bushel, not cost, but what they're making per bushel has not changed much since the 30s and 40s. You're looking almost 100 years, 90 to 80 years of the same thing. They've gotten more efficient is the only difference, because costs of everything have increased. You're looking at a combine for these guys, $750,000 for a combine
or over.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
So they had come to the breaking point where they said, you know what, we're marching on Washington, and a lot of them did. They drove tractors. It was even out here where they were talking about a term called parity, Parity, parity. What is that? Well, I got a bushel of wheat. What is that worth? That's worth 10 gallons of gas, right? Instead of a bushel of wheat being worth a gallon and a half of gas. This is what, it's about value. What is our value? And so that was happening then. and it's not gotten any better. In fact, I think in some ways the last couple of years it's gotten worse. When the last 15 years with corporate farming, corporate ranching as a commodity to a large global geo business is really caused us to go downhill. And we're lucky, again, partly because we've designed it this way, where we don't owe a banker. Don't do it. And so we've absorbed this cost, but we've also had, behind every successful rancher is a wife who works in town. How many times have you heard me say that? Yeah. Right. And it's true. It's very few can do it at the level and the size that we're at. So it's about, to me, and I start using some strong words like subjugation. We're being subjected to being a subject, slowly but surely. And you have to come to a decision. Can I continue to do this, or do I have to just get out? Right. And that's, you have people losing businesses, going out of business as a ranch, as a farm all the time. Now, that's just with that. Look at some of these poor souls that were in Ohio, Iowa this summer with a big, huge weather event. Look at Nebraska and the Dakotas the year before that with snowstorms that they lost tens of thousands of heads of cattle. Yeah. Put people out of business. Yeah. I mean, what do you do? So when you ask why my hamburger is $4.50 a pound, there's why. It's not because of the guy who's raising it. It's because of the people who are making a profit off the backs of the people who are purchasing it and the backs of the people who are producing it. It's a true middleman situation where they don't do a thing but handle it and then collect the money off of it.
Yeah, and
they do nothing productive.
We've got a couple minutes, and I think just a thought. One of the thoughts we could end on is, it's not like we're here looking to get rich. No. Very few people in the agriculture business do I ever think of as being greedy. It's simply trying to just get enough where they're comfortable, and it's not where they're starving to death. I think that's where that misconception of it's a typical farmer rancher just asking for more money and all that. That's not the case at all. It's just we're looking to break even and get a little bit more than that, so we can, one, improve things, and two, just be a little bit comfortable and know we're going to make it through. Because I think that's where we're going, is people are going to start losing those if prices keep going like this and events keep occurring. They're gonna fold.
Well, and my long-term vision as I get older is not to do this and sell it and then go spend time on a beach. Right. My long-term is to leave this place better than I got it, so that my grandkids, my great-grandkids, while I will never meet, I'll be dead long before they're around, I'm guessing, they also can maintain a heritage and a culture that I had. And I feel bad that I don't think I've been able to give you and your brother the lifestyle and the culture that I grew up with. Yeah. And my dad never had the same thing. I mean, they had it tougher, but there's parts of that I wish you guys could have experienced that you can't, or we couldn't. And it's because things have changed to the point where it's no longer a feasible, or it's inefficient to do what we did.
Yeah, I think feasibility is a good answer for that. Yeah. Just feasibility.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think about this sale, and it's been a couple of days now, and my guts are in a knot. I worry, and I worried beforehand that, God, I hope they're going to be generous. I hope this is a good market day. Yeah. And I don't think I just don't see it changing drastically until we start putting some pressure on politicians. And you know what? It's not just us. People who eat need to step up and say, look, I need to have I can't afford to buy beef. Yeah. I can't afford to buy pork. And, you had pork producers during the early parts of COVID that were euthanizing animals because they couldn't get them to market. Yep. What do you do with it?
And that's a loss for them. Imagine taking a wheat field or something. And you just had to burn it. Right. That's the equivalent. That really is the equivalent. You had to raise your own raise as in RAZE, raise your own wheat because you can't sell it. That's what they did to the hogs.
Well, and when you look at an animal, I don't see just a steer out there.
No.
I see feeding in cold weather. I see purchasing hay. I see putting that hay up. I see vaccinating that animal. I see bringing it in and taking care of it.
Branding.
I see calving.
Yeah.
That's all. That represents effort and blood, sweat, tears, and worry, and doing everything you can possibly do as a caretaker to keep that animal up to a point where it can be put into the food chain and from us. That's what that represents to me. And it's not just ours, it's everybody's.
Yeah.
You know, and there's people that are worse off than us, and I feel for them, because I mean, I'm at a spot with this. It's like, what do we do? Okay, well, we cut back. There's some things we can't do. We hardly built any fence around here last year because I was afraid of what the market would do. Didn't want to spend a lot of money. We bought a trailer, what we needed. You know, I mean, you got to keep going in business, but you try to trim back what you can, where you can, and do with as you can. And that's where we're at. I mean, I grew up with Depression era grandparents who had habits that they never trashed anything. They kept everything. They hoarded everything. And you see, I've got a little bone pile of metal and scraps of things that, you know what, we're there again. And it's not because we're cheap. It's because it's a necessity. It's like what we got to do. So anyway, I'm getting myself all mad and worked up again.
All right. So a little bit of a melancholy episode today, but I think with that, we'll just say to our viewers, like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Facebook, share this, spread the word. Thanks for
Eat
keep following.
beef.
Yeah.
Eat beef.
It's what's for dinner.
Yeah. You know, and just one last thing. I know you're starting to sign off here, but you know what? When you say we're not looking to make a killing, we're not.
Mm-mm.
And we've had some good years. Don't get me wrong, we really have. Those years, what we did is we reinvested that money back into this place. We didn't go buy
a lot
new
of
things.
fence. I remember we got that, and the first thing that happened was fences went up.
Fences, and we kept more replacement animals.
Yeah. To
sustain our health, our herd health, and our herd quality. To do that, not a dime of that went to go play.
Right.
So I'm not looking to make giant profits on this, like you said, because I want people to eat beef for every meal. I don't want it to be a special occasion meal, because if that's the case, and that's where it's at now, when you're spending, you know, $13 a pound for a rib steak, that's crazy. That's an occasional birthday meal or some special event. I want people to be able to buy that and eat it every meal, whether it's burger or spare ribs or a steak. It doesn't matter. That's where I'm at with that, is eat beef, eat it for every meal, but be able to afford it, you know. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. More rant.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, folks. Thanks until you're better paid.